welcome back to another sewing adventure on my channel here, Historical Belle. I am Marie of Historical Belle, and today, some of you who might have been following this channel for a while, if you do remember this, thank you so much. Oh, Lucky wanted to come say hi too. Say hi, Lucky. So some of you who might remember this dress here, this is my Ren Fair dress that was like a Tudor kirtle that I made several years ago. And for this project, I had actually wanted to make like a smock and put trim on the bottom and do a cap and like all of this stuff. And I ran out of time, which happens. And now I thought, I'm going to the Renaissance Fair tomorrow. Maybe I should finish that project for, Renaissance Fair 3 years later. Why not? Right? And also, I had gotten this book for my wedding. Who doesn't love getting costume books for their wedding? I definitely put a lot of costume books on my wedding registry. Thank you to everyone who got those. And so I got this book, The Tudor Tailor. And in it, they have a wonderful gridded pattern about how to make a smock. So that is what I'm going to be using today to make a smock. I've never done a gridded pattern before, but I have definitely looked at pictures and then come up with a pattern, so I feel like that should be kind of similar. So let's go, right, Lucky? So first off, I am going to measure myself. Now, of course, I generally know my measurements, but we're just being sure, and so I can show you. The most important measurement for this garment is my bust. Therefore, I am taking that measurement to be certain of what it is, and also to then use it in drafting the pattern. So the book, The Tudor Tailor, is really great. It's also the first book that I've worked out of where I've gotten a gridded pattern out of the book. So the book has so many wonderful detailed instructions to make sure everything is historically accurate. I am not following those today. Maybe one day I will hand sew a smock, but today is not the day because I would like to wear this smock tomorrow. For fabric, I am using a cotton bed sheet that I thrifted. Thrifted bed sheets are like my go-to for when I just need plain white fabric. They're great, economical, eco-friendly. If I were to make this out of historically accurate material, I would be using linen. Here you can see I have been drafting the pattern onto my fabric, and I've been doing that just by putting pins in. You could do this by drawing it, but I like pins because they're easily movable in case you need to alter anything. So just my tape measure and my pins is how I am drafting this gridded pattern onto my fabric. Drafting the pattern was actually way easier than I thought it would be. I was kind of scared to do it because this was the first time I had done something like that, but it was pretty easy. Also, my measurements were really close to the measurements of the gridded pattern, so I didn't have to size it up all that much, which was also really helpful. So here I am cutting it out, and as you can see, I don't think I got the hem perfectly straight, but that's okay. I can finish that later. Now I'm giving my fabric pieces that I've cut out a nice good press before I start. And if I were to iron my fabric before I lay it out on the ground to cut it out, I feel like it just gets wrinkled again. But c'est la vie. Here I am hemming the neckline. So this is the center front of the smock, and it's a rather deep V. I have some special ideas on how to hem this. I'm actually going to use some embroidery. Now this is not from my actual only embroidery machine. My sewing machine is a brother as well, and it also has some embroidery stitches that it's doing. So I decided to do some embroidery that was in black to kind of emulate that Tudor blackwork embroidery that is historically accurate and I see on a lot of really cool Tudor gowns. The embroidery turned out okay. It got a little not as even as it went on, but it's okay. No one should be that close to me to see that it is not perfectly spaced. Here I am cutting out the sleeves. So I decided to do the full sleeve pattern. So it's basically like a giant square. Maybe it's more of a rectangle, depending on how long your arm is. Looks pretty square.
when I cut it out. Now here I am cutting out the gusset. I realized as I was editing this video that I actually do not have footage of me installing the gusset, which is a rather tricky process. I actually have a whole video dedicated to how I put in a gusset wrong and then I had to take it out and re-put it in the correct way. So if you're interested in how to do that, I have a whole nother video. I'll link it down below or at the end of this video. At this time, I am also cutting out the cuffs for my wrist and the collar for my neck, and of course Lucky has to help. Now it is time to sew gathering stitches on the top of my sleeve and also the bottom of my sleeve, but I'm doing 2 gathering stitches along the top because one of my friends said it looks more like cartridge pleating than just machine gathering. So I'm going to try and see. So far, I really like how it looks. And then once I've gathered the top and the bottom, I'm going to go ahead and sew up the side seam. I haven't really done a lot of sewing on this project yet, but that's about to change because now I am about to attach the front of the smock to the back of the smock. And yes, I sewed the sleeves before because I need them to make sure I have left enough room for the sleeves on this smock because, again, there's not really like a pattern. There's a grid in a book, and therefore I want to be sure that I am leaving enough room for my sleeves. I did somehow cut one side longer than the other, but that will be taken care of when I do the hem. And also, I'm not too concerned because the smock is going under the kirtle. You are never going to see the bottom of it. The smock is really like the undergarment for the Tudor era. It is what is closest to a lady's skin, and there's nothing else between her and the smock. I think it's really interesting because the smock is still generally meant to be seen, at least if you're like a common lady. If you are of royalty or noble birth, then your smock is not seen as much as you have more outer layers and you don't need as much mobility to do physical labor. But if you're a working lady, then your smock is pretty much on display. It's seen. Here I am setting my sleeves into my smock. I always gather my sleeves as far as they will go and then I ungather them to fit into the appropriate area. It's pretty easy to set sleeves this way. I didn't really have a hard time doing it. The gathers came apart really easily and filled the space nicely, and then I was just able to stitch those all down. Now it is time for the cuffs and collar. I am going to, of course, press those very nicely before I sew them on to my smock. Here I am pressing the collar. And here I am pressing the cuffs. As you can see, I already had the collar sewn. It was 2 pieces, and therefore I had already sewn them together. The cuff is just 1 piece, and then I'm ironing it, fold it over. Here I am attaching that collar to the neck of my smock. As I go around, I'm pinning it to the outside, and the collar was a smidge smaller than the smock, so I just kind of did like a nice little pleat in the back because I didn't want to have to resize. I didn't have to fuss with all that. So just a nice little pleat in the back solved that problem. And I was really happy with how the collar looked. Yeah, I thought that looked really nice. Now on to the cuffs. Cuffs are fairly simple. I haven't done as many collars as I have cuffs, but here I am. I'm just, undoing those gathers, making them not as tight so that they will fill the entire cuff to go around my wrist, and then pinning that down. The last step was sewing on the cuffs and the collars, then adding little hooks and eyes to the cuffs so that they closed, and then hemming the smock.
So I had some pretty big ambitions when I set out to make things this afternoon, but the shift is done, or the smock is done. I am tired, and I did not get to the cap or to the sleeves, like the oversleeve things. So I'm just going to wear this with my kirtle tomorrow to the Renaissance Fair, and that'll be the next vlog. So be sure to hit subscribe and like so that you can come to the Renaissance Fair with me next time and see this smock in action. Until next time, bye!